Welcome to the Future of Us Bookcast, your gateway to insights shaping our future.
Today, we're going to get into a book that honestly feels more relevant every day, The Second Machine Age. It's by two researchers from MIT, and they've really dug into how digital tech is reshaping, well, everything, especially work and the economy.
Yeah, it's striking, isn't it? The pace of change lately. I mean, you look at AI, things like ChatGPT, autonomous systems. It feels like it happened overnight almost. And the book's core message really is that this isn't just another tech boom. They argue it's a genuine inflection point, something as big as the Industrial Revolution.
That's exactly it. That's the scale they're talking about. And to really get a grip on what's happening now, they say you need to look back, put it in historical context. They start by trying to measure, the really big shifts in human history.
I loved that part. How do you measure progress objectively? People argue about the printing press versus, say, agriculture, but which one truly changed the human condition the most? It's tricky.
It is. So they lean on the work of a historian, Ian Morris. He came up with this metric for social development. It's not just about gadgets. It's about how well a society can, master its environment, both physically and intellectually.
Okay, so how did he measure that?
He uses four main things: how much energy a society can capture, think food, fuel, power, how organized it is, like city size, administration, its war-making ability, unfortunately, and crucially, its information technology.
Right. And when you plot that score over thousands of years, what do you see?
Well, for most of human history, the line is almost flat, just tiny bumps. Progress was slow, fragile,
Yeah.
easily wiped out by famine or disease,
Until
until the first machine age. That's when the curve suddenly bends sharply upwards, like nothing before or since.
And the trigger was the steam engine, wasn't it? Specifically, James Watt's improvement.
Exactly. Between about 1765 and 1776, Watt made the steam engine roughly 3 times more efficient. And that little change, well, it changed everything.
Suddenly, we weren't limited by muscle power anymore, human or animal.
Right. That breakthrough unlocked factories, mass production, railways, steamships, pretty much the whole modern industrial world. It was a massive boost to human physical power.
Okay, so the first machine age boosted muscle power.
Precisely. And the argument in the book is, what happens when you get a similar, maybe even bigger boost to mental power, to our cognitive abilities?
And that's where we are now, the second machine age. Machines aren't just lifting heavy things, they're doing tasks that used to require human brains. Analyzing data, medical diagnosis, even creative work.
And this time, the authors argue, it's driven by technology that's fundamentally different. It has 3 key characteristics. It's exponential, digital, and combinatorial.
Let's break those down. Exponential first, that's Moore's law territory, right? Things getting faster and cheaper at an accelerating rate.
Yeah, and it's profoundly counterintuitive. Our brains think linearly. Doubling something every year sounds slow at first, but after 30 doublings, you're not at 60, you're over 1 billion. This sheer speed catches us off guard.
Okay, exponential speed. Then digital. What's key there?
Perfect replication at virtually 0 cost. Once you create a piece of software or digitize a song or a book, you can copy it infinitely, perfectly, and send it anywhere instantly. The marginal cost drops to almost nothing. That's huge for scalability.
And that leads to the third one, combinatorial innovation.
Exactly. Because digital building blocks can be mixed and matched endlessly. Every new app, every new algorithm, every data set can potentially be combined with all the others. So innovation feeds on itself. It's not like, digging coal where you eventually run out. Digital ideas just create more ideas.
Right, it's like digital Lego bricks. You can keep building new things forever.
That's a great way to put it. And these 3 forces, exponential, digital, combinatorial, they set the stage for the book's main economic story, which is about 2 big things happening at once: incredible vanity and growing spread.
Okay, let's dive into that economic impact. Starting with the good news. Chapter 7, Computing Bounty. The idea here is that digital tech creates enormous wealth.
Yeah, enormous value. Bounty means more stuff, better quality stuff, more variety, often at lower prices. Think about the apps on your phone, online entertainment, information access. It's a staggering amount of value.
But the book points out, this bounty doesn't always show up immediately in the economic stats. There's often a lag. Right?
Significant lag, yeah. And this explains that famous puzzle from the 80s, the productivity paradox. Remember Robert Solo's quote from '87?
Oh yeah, the classic.
We see the computer age everywhere, except in the productivity statistics.
It perfectly captured the frustration. Companies were spending fortunes on computers, but overall economic productivity wasn't really taking off. Why?
Well, The book argues it's not just about upping the hardware. That's the easy part. The real bottleneck is all the complementary innovation needed to actually use the tech effectively.
What kind of complementary stuff?
Things like developing new software, training employees, and this is the big one, fundamentally redesigning business processes. The authors cite research suggesting that for every dollar spent on computer hardware, companies might need to spend up to $9 on these other things.
$9. Wow. So the computer itself is just the tip of the iceberg.
Exactly. It takes time, effort, and often painful organizational change to unlock the real value. They use a fantastic historical analogy, the electrification of factories.
Ah, right. Tell us about that.
So when factories first got electric motor, say in the late 1890s, they often just replaced the big central steam engine with a big electric motor. But they kept the factory layout the same, all the machines clustered around that central power source.
Because that's how it worked with steam power.
Right. And guess what? Productivity barely budged for about 20 years.
20 years. So what changed?
Eventually, engineers realized electricity allowed for a totally different setup. You could put smaller motors on individual machines, arrange them logically for workflow, create assembly lines. They had to completely rethink the factory. Only then did productivity surge.
So electricity was a general-purpose technology, a GPT, but it needed that whole ecosystem of changes around it.
Precisely. And the book argues that information technology, computers and networks, is our era's GPT. It also requires that deep, time-consuming organizational redesign. They give the example of CVS Pharmacy completely re-engineering its prescription filling process with new enterprise software.
Yeah, that wasn't just installing software. It was changing workflows, retraining staff across thousands of stores. A massive undertaking.
But it paid off hugely in customer satisfaction and efficiency. And that brings us to why productivity matters so much. They quote Paul Krugman on this.
Productivity isn't everything, but in the long run, it is almost everything.
And the significance of that, it's stark. Unless a country is sitting on, mountains of oil, the only way for society as a whole to get richer over time is for output per worker to go up. We have to get more efficient.
So the optimism in the book comes from the idea that we're finally starting to see the payoff from those complementary IT investments.
Yes, they argue the groundwork laid over the past few decades is now bearing fruit, and history gives us confidence, they point out.
The productivity slowdown in the 1970s and the subsequent speed up 20 years later had an interesting precedent. In the late 1890s, electricity was being introduced to American factories. But the productivity paradox of that era was that labor productivity growth did not take off for over 20 years.
So the takeaway is these big technological shifts take time, they require patience and investment and reorganization, but the bounty does eventually arrive, and likely for decades to come. Okay, so there's this huge bounty being created, but how do we measure it? That's the core question in Chapter 8, Beyond GDP. The argument here is that our main economic measure, GDP, is becoming increasingly misleading.
Right, because gross domestic product basically just counts stuff that's bought and sold, money changing hands.
Exactly. And what happens when a free digital service, like, say, online maps, replaces something you used to pay for, like a physical map or asking for directions?
Well, GDP might actually go down, even though I'm arguably better off.
Precisely. This is where the concept of consumer surplus comes in. It's the difference between what you would have been willing to pay for something and what you actually pay. For free digital goods, that surplus can be enormous, but it's totally invisible to GDP.
The book uses the music industry as a prime example.
A perfect one. Yeah. They show how total music industry revenues, even including digital sales, fell sharply, something like 30% between 2004 and 2008. The analog dollars becoming digital pennies phenomenon.
So GDP took a hit, but were music listeners worse off?
Absolutely not. The bounty exploded. We have access to vastly more music, more variety, instantly, often for free or via cheap streaming. The monetary value captured by the industry went down, but the value delivered to consumers went way, way up.
And Wikipedia is another classic example.
Oh, absolutely. It's got, 50 times the information of the old Encyclopedia Britannica? And it costs zero. How much value is that? GDP records basically none of it.
So if the price is zero, how do they even try to estimate that value?
One clever approach they discuss is using time as a proxy for value. How much time do these free services save us? They cite estimates that the free parts of the internet might create something like $2,600 of value per user per year. None of that in GDP.
Wow. And they mentioned Google searches saving time too.
Yeah, research by Hal Varian at Google suggested the average search saves about 15 minutes compared to older methods. Across the workforce, that adds up to maybe $500 in value per worker per year. Again, totally missed by standard metrics.
And it's not just free goods, is it? The nature of assets is changing too, intangibles.
Right. The book talks about 4 kinds of intangible assets that are increasingly important but poorly measured. Things like intellectual property, organizational capital, unique business processes, human capital, and fascinatingly, user-generated content.
Like all those YouTube videos, what was the stat? 43,000 hours uploaded every day.
Something insane like that. It's this massive, crowdsourced creation of value, often done for free, that our traditional accounting just doesn't know how to handle.
Which leads to a pretty startling quote in the book.
The great irony of this information age is that, in many ways, we actually know less about the sources of value in the economy than we did 50 years ago.
That's sobering. If we don't measure the real value, we can't make good policy.
Exactly. We might think the economy's stagnating when parts of it are actually booming in ways we don't count. To really bring home how much better off we are in terms of sheer stuff and quality, they use a great thought experiment. They ask you to imagine.
Would you rather shop exclusively in that old catalog 1912 Sears? Or would you rather pay today's prices for a full selection of today's goods and services?
And even though prices were way lower back then, almost everyone would choose today's options, right? Because the variety, the quality, the new goods and services, they add immense welfare that isn't captured just by adjusting old prices for inflation. The bounty is real, even if our spreadsheets are lagging behind.
Okay, so we have this incredible bounty, but now we need to talk about the other side of the coin, the darker side, which the book calls Chapter 9, the spread. This is about inequality.
Right. While the overall economic pie is getting bigger, that's the bounty, the way it's being sliced up is changing dramatically. The spread refers to the growing gap between the winners and losers in the digital economy, increasing inequality in income, in wealth, in opportunity.
And the data they present is pretty stark. They show this major decoupling happening.
Yeah. Key economic indicators that used to move together are now diverging. GDP is going up, productivity is going up, corporate profits are hitting records. But median household income, it actually peaked way back in 1999 in the U.S. and fell significantly over the following decade.
So the average person wasn't seeing the benefits of that overall growth. How do they explain that? They use a great analogy, don't they?
The bank teller analogy.
Yeah.
If you have 10 tellers making, say, $30,000 a year, the average and the median income are both $30,000.
Yeah.
Pretty straightforward.
Okay.
But then you have the CEO who makes $30 million. The average income skyrockets. But the median worker, the person exactly in the middle, is still making $30,000. That extreme skewing is what's happened to the whole economy. The gains are concentrating at the very top.
So what's technology's role in driving this spread? They identify 2 main mechanisms. The first is skill-biased technical change, or SBTC.
Right. SBTC basically means that technology isn't neutral in how it affects different types of jobs. It tends to substitute for routine tasks, things that can be easily broken down into steps and programmed.
That includes routine manual work, like on an assembly line, but also routine cognitive work, right?
Yeah. Exactly. Think bookkeeping, processing forms, basic data entry, even some kinds of document review, stuff that used to be solid middle-class office work. Technology is getting really good at automating that.
But it doesn't replace all skills.
No, crucially, it complements or augments non-routine cognitive skills. Things like creativity, complex problem-solving, strategic thinking, persuading people, managing teams. Demand for those skills actually goes up.
So high-skilled workers who can leverage the tech do really well, while workers doing routine tasks find their jobs automated away or their wages pushed down.
That's the core of SBTC. And the book shows data that demand for routine tasks has been falling faster and faster over recent decades.
Okay, that's skill bias. What's the second mechanism?
Capital bias technical change.
Yeah.
This is about the shift in rewards away from labor and towards capital.
Meaning the people who own the machines or the software are getting a bigger slice of the pie compared to the people doing the work.
Pretty much. Historically, the share of national income going to labor, wages and benefits, was relatively stable. But since the 1980s, that labor share has been declining in many countries, including the U.S. It fell below 58% by 2010. At the same time, the share going to corporate profits hit record highs.
So the robots or the algorithms are capturing more of the value than the human workers they might be replacing?
That's the implication. When capital, in the form of smart machines or software, can do the job cheaper or better than human labor, The return flows to the owners of that capital, not the workers.
And this puts intense pressure on wages for jobs can be automated. There's a quote in the book that really drives this home.
Yeah, it's blunt. In a free market system, either that worker must accept a wage of $1 an hour or find some new way to make a living.
It's a stark way of saying technology sets a new, potentially very low ceiling on wages for certain types of work. If a machine can do it for pennies, it's hard for a human to compete on price.
And this dynamic helps explain something we've seen after recent recessions: the jobless recovery.
Right. The economy bounces back, profits recover, but the jobs don't return at the same rate. Why?
The authors talked to executives about this, they reported.
Conversations with senior executives help explain this pattern in the data. When the recession came, business as usual obviously was not sustainable, which made it easier to implement a round of painful streamlining and layoffs. As the recession ended and profits and demand returned, the jobs doing routine work were not restored.
So basically, recessions provide cover for companies to accelerate automation. They cut the routine jobs they were maybe planning to cut anyway, replace them with tech during the downturn, and then when things pick up, they just don't hire those people back. The automation becomes permanent. So this spread isn't just widening the gap between the top and the middle, it's actually changing the fundamental shape of the market. That's the focus of Chapter 10, the biggest winners, stars and superstars.
This is where they get into winner-take-all markets, right? The idea that a few top performers capture almost all the rewards.
Exactly. The concept goes back to economist Sherwin Rosen. He pointed out that historically, even the very best performer in a field, the best singer, the best doctor, the best baker, was limited by physical constraints. They could only serve a local market or a limited audience.
The best singer couldn't sing in 2 cities at once.
Right. But digital technology blows those constraints away because digital goods, music, software, advice designs can be replicated perfectly and distributed globally at near zero marginal cost.
So the absolute best provider, the superstar, can now potentially serve the entire global market.
Potentially, yes.
Yeah.
And capture a vastly disproportionate share of the income in that market. The book uses the J.K. Rowling example.
Ah, yeah. Comparing her to past writers.
Right. Homer might have reached, 50 listeners at a time? Shakespeare, maybe 3,000 people in the Globe Theater? But J.K. Rowling, her work is digitized, translated, distributed globally instantly via ebooks, movies, merchandise. Her reach, and therefore her earning potential, is amplified massively by technology.
It's incredible leverage. And it's not just authors or entertainers, is it? They talk about CEOs, too.
Definitely. Technology increases the scale and impact of decisions made at the top. A good strategic decision by a CEO can now be implemented faster and more consistently across a huge global organization thanks to IT systems. This amplifies the value of top talent.
Which helps explain why the gap between CEO pay and average worker pay has exploded. They cite that ratio going from like 70.1 in 1990 to maybe 300.1 by 2005.
Yeah, part of that is likely due to this increased technological leverage. And these winner-take-all dynamics are often reinforced by network effects.
Where the value of a product increases, the more people use it, like Facebook or an app store.
Exactly. The bigger the network, the more valuable it is, which attracts more users, which makes it even more valuable. It creates these powerful feedback loops that lock in the dominance of the leading platform or provider. It makes it incredibly hard for competitors to break in.
So what does this do to the overall distribution of income or success? It's not a normal curve anymore.
No, that's the key point. We're moving away from the familiar bell curve, where most people cluster around the average middle. Instead, we're seeing power law distributions.
Power laws. Those are the ones with the really long fat tails, right?
Exactly. In a power law, a small number of players at the extreme end capture a massive share of the total. Think about website traffic, book sales, income. Often, the top 1% or even 0.1% get a huge chunk of the pie. The average can be way, way higher than the median.
They use the Major League Baseball salary example.
Yeah, where the average player salary is something like 3 times higher than the median salary. A few superstars earning tens of millions pull the average way up, even though half the players earn less than the median.
So the link to technology is direct here.
Very direct. The author stated clearly.
Each time a market becomes more digital, these winner-take-all economics become a little more compelling.
Zero marginal cost, global reach, network effects. They all push markets in this direction. And the implication for the broader society, especially the middle class, is profound. They quote Kim Tai-Paley on this.
The era of bell curve distributions that supported a bulging social middle class is over, and we are headed for the power law distribution of economic opportunities.
That's a huge claim. It suggests the economic structure that supported a large, stable middle class in the post-war era is being fundamentally eroded by technology, pushing opportunity towards the edges, especially the top end.
Okay, so bringing together the bounty and the spread leads us to the really tough questions in Chapter 11. Implications of the bounty and the spread. This is where they directly confront the possibility of technological unemployment.
Yeah, the idea that machines could actually displace human workers faster than new jobs are created. It's a fear that goes way back. People sometimes call it the Luddite fallacy, the mistaken belief that technology destroys jobs overall.
But the authors argue this time might be different because the data shows that decoupling we talked about.
Exactly. Since the late 90s, we've seen productivity rising, GDP growing, but the share of the population with jobs has stagnated or even fallen. Wealth is being generated, but it seems to require less human labor to do it.
This sounds a lot like what John Maynard Keynes worried about back in the 1930s. He even coined a term for it.
He did. Technological unemployment. And his definition from back then is chillingly relevant today.
This means unemployment due to our discovery of means of economizing the use of labor, outrunning the pace at which we can find new uses for labor.
The key phrase there is outrunning the pace. Keynes wasn't saying technology always destroys jobs, but he saw the possibility that automation could happen so fast that society couldn't invent new tasks for displaced workers quickly enough. The link could break.
To really explore if that link could break, the book uses a thought experiment, doesn't it? The android one.
The android thought experiment. Yeah, it's stark. Imagine, they say, that we invent cheap, capable androids that can do absolutely everything humans currently do for work, except for one single task. Let's say, cooking.
Okay, so robots do everything but cook. What happens?
Well, first, productivity goes through the roof. Massive bounty. We can produce almost anything incredibly cheaply.
Sounds great. But what about jobs?
Since the androids do all other jobs, the only work left for humans is cooking. So every single person who needs income now has to compete for those cooking jobs.
Billions of people competing for one type of job.
Exactly. The supply of labor for cooking becomes effectively infinite, driving the wage for cooking down to basically zero, or subsistence level. The spread becomes extreme, all the bounty flows to the owners of the androids, and you have mass unemployment or near zero wages for almost everyone else.
Wow. Okay, that's obviously an extreme scenario, but what's the lesson?
The lesson is that there's no automatic iron law that guarantees technology will always create enough new, well-paying jobs. If technology reaches a point where it can substitute for most human labor cheaply, the economic equilibrium wage for many humans could theoretically fall below a living wage.
Which means job creation isn't automatic. It requires something else.
It requires human ingenuity and entrepreneurship, as the book puts it.
If neither the worker nor any entrepreneur can think of a profitable task that requires that worker's skills and capabilities, then that worker will go unemployed indefinitely.
So the challenge isn't just about workers adapting. It's about society constantly inventing new tasks, new roles, new business models where human skills still provide unique value that machines can't match, at least not yet.
So if machines are getting so capable, what's the strategy for humans? How do we compete? Or maybe not compete. This brings us to Chapter 12, Learning to Race with Machines, Recommendations for Individuals.
Right, and the core message here isn't about racing against the machines. That's likely a losing battle in many areas. It's about learning to race with them. Augmentation, not substitution.
Okay, so how do we figure out where humans still have an edge? They talk about Moravec's paradox, right?
Yes, Moravec's paradox. It's this weird, counterintuitive observation from AI research. Things that we humans find hard, like abstract reasoning, complex math, playing chess at a grandmaster level, turn out to be relatively easy for computers.
Like IBM's Watson winning Jeopardy.
Exactly. But things that humans, even toddlers, find easy, like recognizing faces, picking up objects, navigating a cluttered room, understanding subtle social cues, are incredibly hard for machines.
I remember the example they used. A robot taking ages just to fold a towel.
Yeah, something like 24 minutes. That basic dexterity in real-world interaction is still a massive challenge for AI.
So the skills that remain valuable are the ones tapping into those areas where machines struggle. The book highlights 3 key areas.
First, ideation and creativity. Coming up with genuinely new ideas, asking novel questions, setting goals, framing problems. thinking outside the box that the algorithms operate within.
Okay, creativity. What's second?
Large frame pattern recognition. This isn't just spotting simple patterns in data, which machines are great at. It's about synthesizing complex, messy, incomplete information from diverse sources using intuition and experience. Think of a doctor diagnosing a rare disease based on subtle symptoms in patient history, or a manager sensing a shift in team morale.
Got it. Seeing the bigger picture, integrating different kinds of information. And the third skill?
Complex communication. This is crucial. It's not just transmitting information. It's about persuading, negotiating, empathizing, building relationships, understanding context and subtext. That Zara store manager example is great, listening to casual customer comments to spot fashion trends way before the sales data shows them.
So ideation, pattern recognition, communication, those are the human advantages.
For now, yes. And the model for success is combining these human strengths with the machine strengths. They use the freestyle chess example.
Where human-computer teams beat both the best humans and the best computers playing alone.
Exactly. The human provides strategic direction, intuition, creativity. The computer provides flawless tactical calculation, memory, data processing. Together, they're more powerful than either alone. Garry Kasparov himself said about these teams.
Human strategic guidance combined with the tactical acuity of a computer was overwhelming.
That partnership model, racing with the machine, is the key, which of course has huge implications for education.
Yeah, because our current system is mostly built around the 3 R's: reading, writing, arithmetic. Skills designed for the first machine age, maybe.
Largely, yes, designed for routine cognitive work in bureaucracies and factories. Shigata Mitra, the education researcher, has a pretty pointed critique.
The Victorians were great engineers. They engineered a system that was so robust that it's still with us today, continuously producing identical people for a machine that no longer exists.
Ouch. So the book advocates moving towards educational approaches that foster those uniquely human skills: creativity, collaboration, critical thinking, communication, things like project-based learning, Montessori methods, or Mitra's own self-organizing learning environments, SLs, which encourage curiosity and peer-to-peer teaching.
Okay, so individuals need to adapt their skills. But what about broader society? What policies can help us navigate this transition? That's Chapter 13, Policy Recommendation.
Right. The authors don't advocate trying to stop technology. Instead, they suggest using the standard economic toolkit, the Econ 101 playbook, but adapting it for the challenges of the second machine age. Focus on boosting overall growth and opportunity. They lay out 6 main recommendations.
What's number 1? No surprise here, probably.
Teach the children well. Education is fundamental. They frame it, historically, as the race between education and technology. We need to invest more and, crucially, smarter. Using technology itself, like data from online learning platforms like MITx, to figure out what teaching methods actually work best and improve them continuously.
Makes sense. Use the PEC to improve how we learn to use the tech. Okay, second.
Restart startups. This is critical for job creation. The data shows that net new jobs overwhelmingly come from young companies. Startups create something like 3 million net new jobs a year in the U.S., while established firms, on average, actually shed jobs.
Wow, I didn't realize the difference was that stark. It's huge.
Yeah.
So policies should focus on making it easier to start and scale new businesses. That means reducing unnecessary regulation, streamlining licensing, maybe reforming immigration laws to attract and retain entrepreneurial talent.
Okay, startups as the job engine. Third recommendation.
Make more matches. Reduce friction in the labor market. Use technology to better connect job seekers with relevant openings. Think improved platforms like LinkedIn, maybe using objective skill assessments like coding scores from Top Coder, or even aptitude games like those developed by NAC to identify potential beyond just resumes.
Using tech to fix the information problems in the job market. Fourth.
Support our scientists. Keep investing in basic research and development, R&D. It's the seed corn for future innovation in industries we can't even imagine yet. They also highlight the power of prizes like the DARPA Grand Challenge for self-driving cars to spur innovation towards ambitious goals.
Right, setting a big target and letting people compete to reach it. Fifth recommendation. Upgrade infrastructure. This is a classic one. Roads, bridges, ports, the electrical grid, broadband. The U.S. has a huge backlog, estimated at trillions of dollars. Good infrastructure is essential for business, for commerce, for manufacturing, especially if some manufacturing might be coming back from overseas due to rising costs elsewhere.
Makes sense. Can't have a digital economy without reliable power and data networks. And the final one, number 6.
Tax wisely. This is really interesting. The basic principle. Tax things you want less of, not things you want more of.
And we want less automation driven purely by tax incentives and more human labor.
Exactly. So they suggest shifting the tax burden away from labor, like payroll taxes, which make hiring humans more expensive, and towards things we want to discourage, like pollution or congestion using Pagovian taxes. Singapore's road pricing system is an example.
Taxing negative externalities. What about income tax?
They also suggest potentially higher taxes on the extreme superstar incomes generated by winner-take-all markets, taxing those economic rents. And they point out one major tax tool used by almost every other developed country that the U.S. doesn't have.
A VAT has several attractive properties. It's relatively straightforward to collect, adjustable, and lucrative, but is not currently used in the United States. In fact, America is the only one of the 34 nations in the OECD that does not use one.
A value-added tax, a kind of consumption tax. The significance is it could potentially raise a lot of revenue, allowing for significant cuts in taxes on labor, thus changing the incentives around automation versus hiring.
Those are the more immediate policy ideas. But the book also looks further ahead in Chapter 14, long-term recommendations. What if technology really does start to make large numbers of people unemployable despite our best efforts?
Right. What if a decoupling becomes permanent and severe? If the traditional link between work and income breaks down for many, society needs to consider more fundamental safety nets. The most discussed idea here is basic income.
Universal basic income, or UBI, giving everyone a regular, unconditional sum of money. It's an idea with a surprisingly diverse history of supporters, isn't it?
Yeah, figures from Milton Friedman on the right to Martin Luther King Jr. on the left have supported versions of it. It directly addresses the potential problem of people not having enough to live on if jobs disappear.
But the authors of The Second Machine Age are a bit cautious about UBI, aren't they?
They are. While they acknowledge its potential, their main concern isn't just about providing income, it's about the value of work itself, beyond the paycheck. They quote Voltaire on this.
Work saves a man from three great evils: boredom, vice, and need.
That quote really captures their core philosophy here. Work provides structure, purpose, social connection, dignity. Things that are crucial for individual well-being and social health, and which a simple cash payment might not replace.
So they worry UBI might lead to widespread idleness and social decay, even if it solves the need part.
That's the concern. So their preferred alternative, which still aims to provide a safety net but keeps people connected to work, is the negative income tax, or NIT.
Okay, how does NIT differ from UBI?
The NIT, also championed by Milton Friedman originally, is integrated into the tax system. If your income falls below a certain level, the government doesn't take taxes from you, it actually pays you. But, and this is the key difference, it's structured so that you always have a financial incentive to earn more money yourself. Working an extra hour always increases your total take-home income.
So unlike some potential UBI designs, it doesn't create a situation where working less could make you better off, or where the first dollar you earn is taxed away at a very high rate.
Exactly. It preserves the incentive to work, addressing those Voltairean concerns, while still ensuring a basic income floor. The authors point out that the U.S. already has a version of this, the Earned Income Tax Credit, EITC.
Right. The EITC tops up wages for low-income workers.
Yeah, and studies show it's quite effective at encouraging work and even improving outcomes for the next generation. The book suggests expanding the EITC, making it larger, and maybe extending it to those with zero earnings, moving it closer to a full NIT.
So NIT over UBI. What else do they suggest long-term?
They also emphasize encouraging the peer economy. Platforms like TaskRabbit, Etsy, Airbnb, these create new ways for people to monetize their skills, assets, and time, often in flexible ways that complement traditional jobs or provide income for those outside the standard workforce. Fostering these new models could be important. And that brings us to the final chapter, Chapter 15, Technology and the Future. Here they step back and reflect on the bigger picture, the stakes, and our choices.
And the main takeaway seems to be the future isn't set in stone, right? Technology opens doors, but we choose which ones to walk through.
Absolutely. They stress that technological determinism is wrong. The outcomes, whether we get shared prosperity or a dystopian Gilded Age 2.0, depend on the choices we make now, individually and collectively, about how we develop and deploy these powerful new tools and how we adapt our society.
And the stakes are incredibly high. They frame it as us living through potentially two of the most important events in human history simultaneously.
Yeah. First, the creation of genuine non-human intelligence. Artificial intelligence that can learn and reason. And second, the connection of almost all humans on the planet into a single vast digital network. Either one of those alone would be transformative. Happening together is unprecedented.
But with all this amazing power comes new risks too, doesn't it? Complexity, fragility.
Definitely. As our system's power grids, financial markets, transportation, communication become more complex and tightly interconnected through digital controls, they also become more vulnerable. Vulnerable to system accidents, where small failures cascade in unpredictable ways, like that big 2003 Northeast blackout.
And vulnerable to deliberate attacks, too, like the Stuxnet worm they mention, which targeted physical industrial controls.
Right. So we need to be mindful of building resilience and security into these increasingly complex systems we depend on. We can't be complacent.
So what's the final call to action? Is it about slowing down technology?
No, not at all. They argue that would be futile and counterproductive. We can't and shouldn't try to stop the advance. The challenge is to steer it, to embrace the bounty it offers while actively managing the spread it creates through smart policies, adaptive skills, and, maybe most importantly, shared values.
It comes down to choices. They end with that poignant question from A Christmas Carol, when Scrooge asks the ghost Christmas yet to come about the bleak future he's being shown.
Is this what must be or what might be?
And the significance is clear. The future painted by technology trends isn't inevitable destiny. It's a set of possibilities. It's up to us, our ingenuity, our policies, our compassion to shape which possibilities become reality. The second machine age is what we choose to make it. Wow. That really covers a huge amount of ground, an incredibly thought-provoking book. So just to recap the main arguments, the second machine age argues that we're in a new era driven by exponential, digital, and combinatorial technologies. This creates massive bounty, more wealth, variety, and quality than ever before.
But it also creates unprecedented spread, growing inequality in income, wealth, and opportunity, as technology favors capital and high skills over routine labor. The core challenge is managing this divergence to achieve shared prosperity.
Okay, let's quickly hit the key takeaways for listeners.
First, don't trust GDP alone. The value of the digital economy, especially free goods and consumer surplus, is way bigger than our traditional metrics show.
Second, inequality is being structurally driven by technology. Skill bias and capital bias change are pushing us from bell curves towards winner-take-all power laws.
Third, technological unemployment is a real risk we need to take seriously. Automation, especially during recessions, can permanently displace routine workers, as the Android thought experiment illustrates.
Fourth, for individuals, the key is developing uniquely human skills. Ideation, large frame pattern recognition, complex communication, and learning to race with machines, not against them. Augmentation is key.
Fifth, policy needs a reboot. Reform education for the new skill demands, boost job-creating startups, improve labor market matching, invest in R&D and infrastructure, and crucially, shift taxes off labor and onto externalities or rents.
And finally, think hard about the future of work. Work provides more than just income, dignity, purpose, community. So long-term solutions should aim to support work, favoring things like a negative income tax over UBI and encouraging new peer economy models. Thanks for tuning in to the Future of Us Bookcast. We hope you found inspiration in these ideas. Don't forget to subscribe and share. Together, we're co-creating the world of tomorrow.